Apple's insistence that I change my Apple ID password and extra contractual barrier nowhere found in the Apple Care Plus terms sparked a full-blown small claims firestorm. What began as a simple refusal to update my password ballooned into a three-curtain comedy of errors, with an unqualified store manager standing in for the most powerful tech company on the planet. In the end, I walked away with a $185 judgment garnished straight from Apple's own payroll account, proving that corporate pomposity can crumble under the weight of real justice. Apple's holier-than-thou attitude is their undoing in court. A few disclosures before we begin. I was an Apple retail employee for 2 years and amicably resigned in favor of full-time, post-college employment several months before this unfolded. Additionally, the central issue of this post seems minor. I didn't want to change my password, so some may find this more appropriate for R or petty revenge, but as it involves an extensive court battle, I think R or revenge is a better venue. Although the main issue may make me look petty, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. Based on Apple's pompousness throughout the issue, about a year and a half ago, I was having issues with both my MacBook and iPhone, and scheduled a Genius Bar appointment. This used to be an easy task. You just went to the support site and booked one, but over time, Apple has foolishly attempted to reduce the Genius Bar workload by putting up various roadblocks. I assume this is cheaper than hiring more staff, and that most customers are loyal enough to endure the degraded service. After jumping through several hoops to finally get an appointment, I was prompted to enter my Apple ID and password. I was told that since it had been 3 months, I needed to change it for what was probably the 10th time. I could still use the ID for the App Store and iCloud, but to get a service appointment, I had to change the password. Having gone through this too many times, I finally hit my wit's end. I decided it was an unnecessary barrier to getting my products serviced and escalated the matter through the BBB. Apple's initial response to the BBB was a form letter saying I needed to change the password for security reasons and that there would be no exceptions. I responded, pointing out that this was poor customer service and contradicted the Apple credo that all employees are trained in. Their next reply: Apple considers this matter closed. I hate that response. It's corporate. Speak for you're not worth our time anymore. The BBB closed the case shortly afterward. I dug into my Apple Care Plus policies and discovered there was no clause allowing Apple to refuse service based on arbitrary account security policies. So, I filed a small claims suit seeking the replacement value of the laptop and phone. Here's where it got interesting. Court date arrives. I show up. Apple sends the store manager from the location where I used to work. The store is much farther from the courthouse than another Apple store a mile away. I suspect they just looked up my name and assumed this was a former employee grievance. The judge asks me to explain my case. I succinctly state that Apple is enforcing an extra contractual barrier to service and that I want replacement value for the devices. The judge then turns to the manager and asks if he's a lawyer. He isn't. The judge tells him only an executive or licensed attorney can represent a company in court. The manager, trying to defuse the situation, says he can set up a Genius Bar appointment for me right then and there. The judge deems that reasonable. I agree to visit my old store, and the case is continued for 2 weeks in case things fall through. I go to the appointment. My devices are fixed. A senior tech emails me and overrides the password expiration requirement on my Apple ID permanently. Cool, but I'm still out $60 in filing fees. At the continued hearing, a different judge, no-nonsense type, is cutting through the docket. I explain I'm no longer seeking damages, but that I should be reimbursed the $60 in filing fees because Apple only complied after I sued. The judge turns to the store manager. Are you a lawyer? Same answer. The judge offers to split the difference to save time. I get 30 under my state's laws. The prevailing party is entitled to full court costs. I email Apple's paralegal, the one who had contacted me after the first hearing, and cite the law, requesting the remaining $30. Otherwise, I'd have to appeal, which would cost $125, and Apple would owe me $185 when they inevitably lost. They respond, "We will follow the court's judgment and pay $30. I suspect they thought I was bluffing. I wasn't. I appeal. Now we're in the county circuit court, the highest trial court. I show up. The same manager shows up again. The judge, Bodhi, lively demeanor, asks me to explain. I do. He turns to the manager and asks if he's a lawyer. The manager says no, but presents a letter from Apple's chief legal counsel stating that they're okay with him representing Apple. The judge's whole vibe changes. Apple does not decide what you can or cannot do in my courtroom. You need an attorney. He turns to me. Do you object to a continuance so Apple can get an attorney? I respond, yes, Your Honor. They've now been told 3 times to get a lawyer and continue to disrespect the court. The judge sarcastically and with a grin. Sorry. Judgment entered in my favor. 185, 30 days pass. No payment. I email the paralegal again. She says they're exploring options, as if they'll appeal to the state Supreme Court, but they forgot I used to work for them. I contact my credit union, look up an old payroll deposit, and ask where it came from. Answer, Wachovia. I file garnishment proceedings through that bank. No. Discovery phase needed since I already knew a source of funds. Wachovia cuts me a check within days. TL. Dr. Apple refused to service my products unless I change my Apple ID password, something not required in their AppleCare Plus terms. I sued them. They sent an unqualified manager to court 3 times instead of legal counsel. I won. They didn't pay. I garnished it out of their payroll account.